My name's Eric Carlson. I'm the founder and president of Anthem Properties Group. I'm in charge of a bit of everything, and I interfere too much with my vice president, so I guess I'm a co-vice president of way too much, and I'm working on that, trying to go up, and over where I belong. And I'm very involved in all aspects of the business, the strategy and picking the direction, but also on real estate design, development, execution, as well as in capital formation, working with our partners. It's so many things, really. And first of all, what is the housing crisis? If you go back in the beginning, there was a shortage of housing, and then there was an acute shortage of housing that resulted in very high rents and high condominium prices, for example. And then now the crisis seems to be, well, it's affordable, but there's thousands of finished unsold units in Toronto, and a fraction of that in Vancouver, but still some. And so you look at that and you go, that's called a housing crisis. The bottom line is, for most people, housing has gotten very expensive and it's become part of the national narrative. But if you look behind it, there's different things at play. So on the one hand, on the supply side, there's a lot of red tape, if you will, regulatory overburden in most cities, including Metro Vancouver, where we are today, where all levels of government have a say in what housing should be. And so they layer on, like, we're going to solve climate change in the back of housing. We're going to solve income inequality in the back of housing and the real estate market. And so there's all these rules, all these things we need to do. So we had to build inclusionary housing and a condo project, and 20% of the units had to go below market, 80% of CMHC zoning. And so that sort of, the rest of the project has to subsidize that. And then there's the fees, so many fees. Such that at this point in time in Metro Vancouver, on $1,000 worth of housing, 30%, $300 of that $1,000 is probably attributable to fees. And then when you have a lot of rules you have to navigate and people are enforcing them, it takes time. And so the approval processes take a long time. So ignoring that $300 is the cost of capital of sort of getting through that. So what that means is, for developers to build homes, they have to charge, quote, a lot of money. It becomes unaffordable. And then on the demand side, we rely a lot on pre-buyers to come in and commit to buying a project when it's finished. And that, on the basis of that, it allows capital reform to actually build the project. In BC, there's a lot of demand management taxes because it's perceived that those people are speculators and they themselves are driving up the price of housing. And so there's a school tax, a speculator tax, a foreign buyer tax, and several other taxes which aren't in the $300 I was talking about, but they undermine the confidence of a pre-buyer. And so they're not there to drive new supply on the one hand. And so you create this sort of inhibitors on demand and cost push on supply, takes you to a policy-contrived disequilibrium in the market. Something strange happened in, I'll say, late 21, early 22, where the federal government just started letting in all kinds of non-permanent residents in response to maybe a perception of labor shortage because of COVID, and there weren't enough tradespeople. And between 22, 23, and the end of 24, the country ended up getting an extra 2 million non-permanent residents that just surged in over a 3-year period, and they all needed housing. And because they're students and temporary workers, they typically go to the rental market and they drive that. So what that did, it took the vacancy rate to zero, drove rents way high because of the demand. And then the development community responds to that, going, well, there's a lot of immigration, we better build some more housing. So everyone piled in and started building lots of houses or homes, which take, in the case of condo projects, take years, 3-4 years. And then sometime, I think October 2024, the federal government went, oh, maybe we overdid it. Let's not renew any of these visas for these extra 2 million people. And so basically over the next 3 years after that, late 24, 25, 26, and 27, we're essentially kicking those 2 million people out of the country, the extra 2 million that came in. And but the good news is when that's over, we'll be to a steady state again. But that disruption has been absolutely huge, and I think is a big part of what we're reading about in the headlines when we talk about the surplus inventory in Toronto and in Vancouver. Yeah, so public policy is a very, very powerful thing because it has the force of the rule of law, and people have to abide by it, typically. And I've been in the development business for a long time, 40 years, and there was a time when you kind of, went and found a piece of land, you wanted to do something to build a shopping center, a warehouse, or a home, or whatever. And there's some rules you had to get through. You had to get build in accordance with the building permit. You had to get a development permit, sort of build in accordance with some sort of zoning that didn't change that often, so that what you're building could fit into the existing civil infrastructure of the town you're building or the city you're building in. And that kind of carried on for a long time. And then starting about, somewhere in the 2015s, somewhere in the mid-2010s, it just started changing, and urban planning got very intrusive. How you had to build, what you had to build. I mentioned earlier talking about housing being used as a policy tool to solve inequality and climate change, and so all the rules around how you can build a building to reduce its carbon footprint, increase cost. I mentioned we have to build now sort of assisted income housing. And there's nothing wrong with low-income housing, but if you're trying to build it it needs a subsidy from someone. And if it's coming from that private project, it's coming from the people who buy that project. And so that policy really accelerated. And then while everyone's figuring this out, all these different cities all over Canada, there's lots of new ways of regulating, and so the different municipalities learn from each other, so there's a lot of policy on the fly. So I'd say between 2015 and 2025, it just is very difficult to navigate building projects, mostly residential, but even in the other asset classes throughout most of the country. And so public policy, I think, though well-intentioned, really bogged down the ability of the market to deliver space for the whole live, work, play thing. And I think it's gotten to a point there, like in Vancouver, where projects aren't going ahead. There's not enough value created relative to the cost that's imposed. From some side, fundamental supply and demands, but a lot through public policy. And I think that public policy is the villain here. And so what must change? It has to reduce. Fees have to come down. Application times have to get processed much faster. And the amount of rules around what a house can be or what a building can be have to simplify. I think we have to make the building code simpler, we have to make the zoning bylaws simpler, we have to make it easier to build stuff. If we do that, then it'll happen. Until that happens, we'll just be sort of in a very difficult place where we're kind of stuck. I'm a real estate developer, every single one of them. They're all challenged to varying degrees because of what we're going through. I come back to that surge in, surge out on the immigration policy. It sent a lot of false negatives out into the market and intelligence. And so, for a city to grow, you need population growth, which drives household formation. You need job growth to get the income to support the new households. They all have to work in tandem. With this sort of immigration thing and the sort of how it slowed down population growth, job growth, and household formation, it primarily affects housing, but it also tail whips into the other asset classes. If there's no jobs being formed, then people don't need a place to go to work. So office space demand, in theory, declines. And if they're not buying stuff in stores, then the retail space demands. Then the people who ship stuff to the stores from warehouses, that demand subsides. So there's a little bit of that going on throughout the region. We also have sort of the tail whip, if you will, of work from home when it's done to the office market. That's starting to diminish. More people are coming downtown to work, they're going to the office space to work, they're not working from home as much. And so I see a little bit of recovery there. And I think that, as this immigration policy levels out, because the good news is that surge out of 2 million people leaving will end. And the steady state of 380,000 non-permanent residents and 380,000 permanent residents coming to Canada each year will sort of provide steady population growth, which will drive all the different asset classes. So I would say there's no real standout asset class that just is going to grab everybody and make everybody a ton of money. But there'll be steady state. I think it's going to be dissipated across all the asset classes. And that's why I was kidding when I said all of them, but kind of like all of them would be good, especially in Vancouver, because even though our public policy matrix is quite flawed, it's still Vancouver. It still has that allure, the beautiful scenery, the nice place to live, the lifestyle, and that whole kind of live, work, play, diverse culture that's so attractive. That's still there. And in between all of the rules and how we should behave, that's still there.